Hi, hello. My name is Ursula and this is the Velvet Lair. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, and you most certainly are, we talk about true crime, dark history, and mysterious stories. Sometimes a little bit of artsy content here and there. And we are currently in the midst of a series that is called Deadly Women Around the World. This is episode number 3, so let's get right into the story, shall we? So this story is actually very famous, and I can't believe I hadn't heard about it at all until 2 weeks ago when I started researching for this video. It takes place in Italy, and a little disclaimer here, although this is a true crime channel and we will often be talking about murder, in this particular video we will also be mentioning cannibalism and dismemberment. So if you're triggered by these topics, be warned. So it's a crazy story. It's a wild one if I've ever heard one. So as you may have seen in the title of the video, we will be talking about Leonarda Cianciulli. She was also known as the soap maker of Correggio, and this is all the more reason why I don't understand how I hadn't heard the story before, as I am a big fan of making my own soap from scratch using the caustic soda and the fats and the oils and mixing everything. Anyway, let's just get right into the story. So to put everything into context, we're going to start with Leonarda's mother, Emilia. Emilia Dinolfi was born in a wealthy family, and she would have been at about the age where a woman comes of age to marry, and she gets introduced to different suitors, and they get to court her, and then the family, alongside with, of course, the young girl, choose the most suitable suitor for her to marry. And usually the family tries to pick a suitor that is either of the same status or of a higher status. This is how they kind of further themselves, bringing in somebody that's either wealthier or as wealthy as them. So in Italy, it would have been just about the same thing as what we could have seen, like, for example, in Bridgerton. I'm guessing most of you have seen that series, so we could say that Emilia would have been like a Daphne of some sort, you know? Could have been a Daphne, let's say that. Unfortunately, although she was very pretty and popular, poor Emilia would not have the dream wedding that a young girl in her situation would expect. She would be assaulted by a guy named Mariano Cianciulli. According to some sources, he would have been a drunk that didn't have a job, that was lurking in the bushes, creeping on this girl, waiting for her to show up, to then drag her into the bushes or in a secluded place and assault her. According to other sources, he was a merchant, so he had a job. Nobody denies that she was assaulted, but there are some discrepancies in what is to follow. So let's just move forward with that version of the story, and then I'll give you the little differences we can find when researching on this case. So, as the story would have it, Emilia was assaulted by this man, Mariano, and she would end up pregnant from this assault. As you may or may not know, at this period in time, when a young girl is with a child, she better be married. She better be married, especially in this high class society. Bearing a child without a husband, it would bring shame not only to her, it would totally dishonor her, but it would also bring shame to her family, which would be ostracized or excluded from the community, excluded from the events. Anyways, abortion was not a thing yet. So what did they do? Well, yeah, you guessed it. They forced poor Emilia to marry this man, her assaulter. It's called a matrimonio riparatore, and it literally means wedding to repair something. Repairing wedding, a fix-it wedding. Fix the problem. Anyway, so this poor girl was stuck with this dude who had assaulted her and who apparently was violent and abusive, which, I mean, is that surprising according to how they met? No, not really. So she ended up moving to a poor side of town with this guy, didn't have all the assistance that she would have had growing up, didn't know how to cook, or I don't know, she just had to learn for herself. And not only was she alone in all of that, she was also not supported by her family anymore. They didn't want anything to do with her. Neither did all of her former friends. Nobody wanted to associate with her, and she was really excluded, isolated, alone with this drunk dude whom had, assaulted her, and who, according to these sources and this version of the story, would go out every day and night to drink and would not bring any money home, or barely any money home. Basically, he would have been a nightmare. So when Leonarda was born, and ever since, she was not shown the love that a child should be shown, and she was not shown any affection, in fact, nor attention. She was the baby that was the cause of her mom's fall from grace. And let's be honest here, she wasn't the cause, he was. But she, the innocent child that didn't ask for anything, she paid the price for this frackin' dude. Anyways, other sources say that actually Leonarda would have been the third child in this couple's marriage, and although she may not have been loved in either case, she would not directly have been the cause of her mom having to marry her dad. Who knows? She had siblings, but she would have nonetheless lacked some love and attention, that's for sure. She tried to commit suicide twice during her childhood by hanging, and the first time somebody came and stopped her. The second time the rope broke. That's what her book says. The other version would suggest that she may in fact have tried to commit suicide, but later on in her life, Leonarda would apparently have even eaten some broken glass to try to damage her internal organs, and it would have accomplished nothing. But this is how desperate she said she was. So that's pretty sad. Who really knows the true version of the facts? I don't know. Maybe we'll never know. The most detailed version of the story that we have is Leonarda's version, the one that she put down in her book. So we're going to have to take her word for it. But once again, it's just her version of things. So she says that she was a very unhappy and sick child, that she had epilepsy, and that she didn't get any treatment because they didn't show her any attention. They didn't take her to any doctor. So she would have these seizures regularly, and she had a miserable childhood. Her mother would really make her feel as though she wished she had never been born. So yeah, that's very sad. So in the first version of the story, Leonarda's father dies of alcohol poisoning. In the second version, he just ups and leaves and is never to be seen again. In both versions, the mother is relieved that he's gone, and she thinks, oh, well, this is my chance to maybe regain the life that I lost. I mean, he was the reason that I lost everything. Maybe now that he's gone, I can get back with my family. I can find myself an appropriate suitor. I'm still young, blah, blah, blah. So she tries to get in contact with her family, but they, alas, want nothing to do with her. And yeah, she finds out that once you're out, you're out. Her reputation has been soiled forever, has been ruined forever. They do not want to associate with her. So she ends up settling for a middle class, maybe a slightly upper class man, and she remarries, I think 1 or 2 years later, and then she, in that version of the events, in that version, she has 2 or 3 more kids, which she cares for like a mother should. And she shows them love and affection, which she doesn't show Leonarda. So, yeah. So that's this version. As I said previously, in the other version, Leonarda is the third child. So, moving on. Once Leonarda comes of age to get married, she decides, oh, well, I'm going to find somebody and get the heck out of this house fast. The thing is that her mother had secretly thought Leonarda's becoming a decent looking young lady. She's desirable. She could actually get me back in that high society, because she could very well marry a wealthy suitor and he would take care of Emilia and the rest of the family as well as Leonarda. But yeah, so that's the mom's plan, and she's doing everything in her power, starting to go to luncheons and organizing stuff, and she's liking it. She feels like she's already halfway in, but unfortunately, she did not count with the fact that Leonarda herself was already falling in love with some other dude called Raffaele Pansardi, who was an office clerk. So, of course, Emilia was furious. She, once again, was not going to be able to regain her place in high society, and she cursed Leonarda. She told her she was going to live a miserable life. And Leonarda, being very superstitious, believed it. And so she went and saw a fortune teller. And the woman told her, well, you're gonna live a long life. You're gonna have a lot of children, but they are all going to die before you. You can imagine Leonarda's, shock when she heard this. She wished to be a mother. She wished to have a big family. She wanted to have everything that she didn't have when she was growing up. And when she heard that, she thought, this is the curse. So the couple moved in another town called Lariano in Alta Irpinia. They were happy there for a while. They were in the mountains. It was pretty. They were a little bit further away from the mother, and she got pregnant. And unfortunately, she had a miscarriage after 3 months. So she lost the child and was probably in a state of shock and a little bit depressed. And she thought, this is the curse. It's starting. Throughout her life, she was pregnant 17 times. Unfortunately, she lost 3 children in the womb, miscarriages, and 10 of them would die at a very young age, around 3 or so. So out of 17, she lost 13. She was left with 4 children. So needless to say that she was very protective of her children, trying to, prevent them from getting hurt in any way that she could. All those deaths just reinforced her belief in the curse, in the fact that it was real. And she went to see another fortune teller, and the woman took her hands and did a palm reading and told her, in your right hand I see prison, and in your left hand I see an asylum for the criminally insane. It was less bad than the all of your children will die forecast, but not a great one either. So yeah, that was great. Yeah, what a great palm reading, huh? Anyways, after the earthquake, the couple got some money from the government. They were able to afford a house in the small town of Correggio. They were happy at first. Raffaele found a job. They had, with the house, included with the house, this little boutique space. So Leonarda, of course, made a little shop out of it. She was selling, I think, used clothes and candles and soap, handmade soap, and also serving tea, apparently, and cookies. So she became somewhat of a local celebrity in the town. Everybody knew her, everybody appreciated her, everybody loved her products and her personality. So things were going good, and her anxiety was coming down, and her seizures that she had kept having ever since the curse. Maybe the anxiety and the fear of the curse was linked to the seizures, but she was doing better in that town. Her eldest son, Giuseppe, which was her favorite, her golden boy, her miracle baby, was studying to become a teacher. Her two other sons were in school, and her daughter, the youngest, was, I think, at kindergarten at that time. So everything was going fine. But even though she was doing better, that curse, it stayed in the back of her mind. And she decided she was going to learn how to, defend herself and her children from that curse. So in order to do that, she had to educate herself on a few things. So she started studying magic, palm reading, astrology, black magic, fortune telling. She had actually become somewhat of a fortune teller. She did palm readings, and she was considered to be, a little bit of a fortune teller, a psychic. Yeah, she was regarded as such in Correggio, and the women went to see her when they needed something, when they needed to know something in their future, when they needed an elixir for protection or a love spell or whatever. She would be the one they would go to. So she had accumulated a certain amount of knowledge on these kind of occult subjects. She had a big collection of books on the subject, and she was proud of that. You'd think that it would stay that way for a while, wouldn't you? But World War II was about to hit, and the Italian men were called to enroll in the army and prepare for war. So Giuseppe, Leonarda's eldest son, the miracle boy, was excited to enroll. So he signed up and he signed a contract. He would be drafted a year later, I think. So she had a little bit of time before the shit hit the fan. But when she learned about that, she freaked out. And she thought, well, I have to do everything in my power to stop it. And if I can't, I have to do everything in my power to help him survive in the war. She started looking through her books frantically. Well, maybe not frantically, but she started looking through her books to find something to help her son in the war. Don't ask me how, but she somehow decided upon human sacrifice. She thought that by taking a life, it would help save her son's life. So a life for a life. and she was going to have to kill someone to do that. But it was for her precious son, so she was willing to do it. She probably spent some sleepless nights thinking about it, and she ended up deciding on her first victim. And that would be a woman by the name of Faustina Cetti. She was 73. And some sources say that she was a widow and that she had had one son who had died a year earlier in a car accident. So she, at that time, was alone and very lonely, yearning for a relationship. She wanted to get remarried. She wanted to find somebody that she could spend her life with. And according to other sources, she was a lifelong spinster and had never gotten married, never had any children, basically a 70-year-old virgin. So I don't know which is true. But nonetheless, whether she was a virgin or not, she did want to find a husband. So she was a neighbor of Leonarda, and they had become more than acquaintances. They would see each other quite often because Faustina was kind of lonely in the village. As we said, she had no family. The other people in town didn't appreciate her too much. Apparently, she was a little bit snobby, a little bit bougie, and people were not into her personality, I guess. So she went and talked to Leonarda whenever she felt lonely, and she would confide in her, and Leonarda would listen closely and pay attention. Then she would tell her exactly what she wanted to hear. Leonarda told her that she had found her a suitor in another city, a bigger city. And Faustina was happy about that because she was tired of the small city life. She wanted a big city. She wanted Milan, or anyways, she was ready for something else. She wanted a change. So she was happy to move to another city. And Leonarda convinced her to sell all of her belongings, her house, her everything she owned, and have a clean slate in another city with this man. But she needed to tell no one about what she was doing, or else it would, just ruin the plan. So Faustina, very gullible, but also maybe a little bit desperate and very lonely, was the perfect prey for Leonarda, and she did everything that she asked. She didn't tell anybody. She sold all her properties, and then on the day that she was supposed to leave, she showed up at Leonarda's house, and Leonarda had her write a bunch of letters to her family members, which were not close family members, but she had a few in Italy here and there. So she had her write them letters to ensure that she was just going off with this man and starting a new life, and she didn't want to be contacted. And so Faustina did just that. Then she gave the letters to Leonarda, who said she would post them after Faustina had met up with this man in that other city. She then served her friend a glass of wine, which was poisoned, and waited for the wine to have its effect. Then she proceeded to take an axe and bludgeon her friend to death. She then carried her, or pulled her, all the way down to her basement, where she placed some basins underneath her, and then proceeded to cut her body into 9 pieces. So she sort of placed them in the way that she would be able to recuperate the blood from the body parts into the basins. And when there was none left to gather, she placed all of the body parts in a cauldron or in a huge pot, and she dumped 7 kilograms of caustic soda in the pot with water. She then stirred and stirred again until the body of poor Faustina turned into this thick black sludge that she then poured into different buckets. And I don't know if she herself poured them into the sewage or if she asked her son Giuseppe to do it. We shall never know. However, she then took the blood that she had recuperated in the basins and let it coagulate, then dried it and smashed it into flour, then mixed it with some baking ingredients to make some tea cakes. Some flour, sugar, egg, margarine, milk, and whatnot. Chocolate. She made tea cakes with this woman's blood. She was not ashamed to say that she served the tea cakes with the tea to the clients that were coming into her shop and to her friends. She also admitted that, of course, she ate some and her son as well, which, I mean, he would, since supposedly, allegedly, he was the one she was doing all of this for. So yeah, she said the cookies were dry and tasted kind of like iron. No shit. I mean, they're filled with blood. Okay. Anyways, so once that was done, she then sent her son to Pola, I mean that city. I don't know how you pronounce the name of it, but she sent him over there to have him dispatch the letters in the postal office from that city so that the stamps would match the city that she was supposed to be in. Apparently, Faustina Seri's sacrifice was not exactly conclusive because Leonarda didn't manage to make acceptable soap with her body. I mean, basically, she had not enough body fat on her to make some soap. I don't know if that's the reason per se, but nonetheless, she decided to make another sacrifice. But before that, I forgot to mention that she did take all of the money and all of the clothes that Faustina was carrying. She kept the money, sold the clothes. Anyway, she made a little profit in addition to her cooking and whatnot. So she decided, okay, we're going to move on to the next person. And that was a woman by the name of Francesca Soavi. I am not sure of Francesca Soavi's age exactly, but she is said to be in between the ages of 50 and 70, I guess. She was also said to be a spinster, or at least someone who didn't have a family or kids or a husband. So she was alone and free to roam the world, and she was looking for a new job opportunity. She was a teacher, so when Leonarda told her that she knew the principal of a girls' school in Piacenza, Francesca was thrilled. She was going to have this job opportunity. That's why she had come to see Leonarda in the first place, and that's what she wanted. So she listened to everything that Leonarda had to tell her. Just like Faustina had been told, she had to say nothing to anyone for it to go smoothly. She had to write letters to her family and friends to tell them that she was fine, that she was starting this new life because she had this great job opportunity, but she couldn't tell them where she was going because supposedly some important people had their daughters in that school and valued their privacy and their anonymity, or at least the child's anonymity. So she was supposed to be quiet about where she was. So she did just that. She wrote letters. She stayed quiet about her plans. She packed her things. She took all of her belongings. And on the day that she was supposed to leave, she went to give the letters to Leonarda, who was supposed to be the one distributing them after she had left. And of course, she never left Leonarda's store. She was served a glass of wine. Once again, once she was knocked out, Leonarda said that she used the same methods for every single one of them. She was taken to the basement as well, placed above a bunch of basins used to collect her blood, and of course she was dismembered as well. Her body was cut into 9 pieces, the same way as Leonarda had done for Faustina, and once the blood was collected, she put all of the body parts into the same cauldron and added 7 kilos of caustic soda and water and stirred until it became, once again, a sort of a black sludge. This time there was a little bit more body fat, but it was yellow fat, and it was apparently not making suitable soap or whatever. I don't know. But once again, the tea cakes were kind of dry and tasted of iron. Okay, so that's that. But once again, she gave them out to everyone around her and to her son. She ate them herself. You know, same, but different. Third victim, because I don't know if it is really because she hadn't managed to make good soap out of them that she had to go to a third one, or if she just had no limit and she was going to go on forever until, just to make sure that he would be extra protected. I don't know. Who knows? However, there was a third victim, and the third victim was called Virginia Cacioppo. Virginia had been a singer, a soprano at La Scala, maybe an opera. Yeah, so she used to, but at that time, her glorious days were behind her. She had been living with her brother and her sister-in-law in Correggio. People knew her. She was rather famous, so it was not like the others. She wanted another work opportunity. She wanted to get back into the business. She wanted to rekindle with her glorious days. And when Leonarda told her that she maybe had found a job offer for her as the secretary of a mysterious impresario in Florence, she was thrilled. She thought, well, that's perfect. I'll get one foot back in the business, I'll meet some people, and one thing leading to another, I could get back into singing. And so she went along with the plan. And once again, just like with the other two, Leonarda told her not to tell anybody about this plan, or else it wouldn't work. So she had to write letters to her friends and family, letting them know that she had gone off to Florence to have this great job opportunity and everything, and that she was just fine and they didn't have to worry. So she did just that and took all of her belongings with her and went off on that last day that she was seen to Leonarda's house. And she was never seen again. And just like the other two, that's what Leonarda said at her trial, just like the other two, she went into the pot. Leonarda added, except, I'm just going to read what she said, all right? She ended up in the pot, like the other two. Her flesh was fat and white. When it had melted, I added a bottle of cologne, and after a long time on the boil, I was able to make some most acceptable creamy soap. I gave bars to neighbors and acquaintances. The cakes, too, were better. That woman was really sweet. So, yeah. She had done exactly the same thing to get her into the pot, except that time the woman was a little fattier and she was younger, and apparently she had there's something called brown fat and white fat. There's two different kinds of fat in the body, and apparently she had the good kind for her soap making. So she was satisfied not only with the soap that she was able to make out of Virginia, poor Virginia, but she was also more satisfied with the taste of the cakes. Yeah, they were sweeter, didn't taste like iron. Great. So so what she did with those? Well, of course, she fed the cakes to everyone, including her son and herself. But the soap, yeah, she said she gave bars to everyone, but she didn't say in that statement per se what she did. She asked her son to get in the bathtub, and she requested to lather him up with the soap from head to toe herself, so that she would be sure that he was covered in this soap, supposedly magical soap that would protect him during the war, and he was at that time an adult. So that was apparently a traumatizing experience for him, understandably, but little did he know. Little did he know, and he would find out later what that soap was made out of and what his mother was doing and what those cakes were, unless he really was an accomplice. But I don't think he really knew. Actually, it is said that when he found out about the cakes and about the soap, he threw up. He was so disgusted and shocked at what his mother had been able to do. He threw up then and there. So I don't think that he was an accomplice. However, moving on, Virginia's sister-in-law, who had either seen her going into Leonardo's shop or heard from somebody else in the village that she had been seen going into Leonardo's shop, she was suspicious. Those letters, it didn't add up. It was suspicious. So she went to the police, and they started an official investigation. And there was this guy working in a bank. He said that he received a voucher of money that was in the name of Virginia. Once the police found out about that, they were able to trace it back to this guy who had brought it in at the bank. And this guy said that it was Leonarda Cianciulli that brought it to him in payment of a certain debt that she owed him. So that's how they traced it back to her, even though somebody had already seen Virginia going into her shop. So they went to her house and they interrogated her. They found some of the clothes that hadn't been sold yet, some of the luggage, and a little bit of jewelry, because of course, and I forgot to mention, she had stolen the money, the clothes, the jewelry of every last one of them, and tried to sell them in other cities so that the objects wouldn't be recognized. She had a few left, must have been hard to sell, and the police found them. They were suspicious of Giuseppe because they didn't really believe that this little old grandma here would be able to do what she did with 3 women, not 1, not 2, but 3. So they were suspicious of her son. And of course, Leonarda was not going to let him take the blame. So she straight up confessed to the murders and told them exactly what she had done and how. And they still didn't really believe her. It was kind of peculiar and crazy. And so she said, okay, well, give me a body and I'll show you. I'll show you I can do it. First, she was sent to jail. She was sent to jail to await her trial, and she waited there for like 6 years. Yeah, she waited there for like 6 years because during the war, the trials were kind of on hold. Her trial started in 1946, 6 years later, after the war had ended, and it lasted 3 days. So during that trial, people from all over the place were coming to see what was what. It was crazy. And she was actually really proud to tell everyone about how she had done this and that and what she had done and why. Yeah, she seemed unrepentant, that's for sure. She was actually brought to a morgue to show the police how she had done what she had done on a body. And she did it in like 12 minutes or 15 minutes. So, yeah, after that, they finally believed her, and they sentenced her to 30 years of jail time and 3 years in an asylum for the criminally insane. Her son was acquitted, and although he had helped her out with the letters, they judged that he was not aware of what she was doing. So he was acquitted, and he didn't want to have anything to do with his mom. He didn't even go to jail to say goodbye before he went to war. He just left. He was just, apparently he was just disgusted by her actions, and so he left without saying goodbye. Nobody really knows if he survived the war or not. If this this magic, quote unquote, the spell, the protection spell that she had put on him had worked or not. Some say that he survived, but it's unsure. The other children changed names and went about their lives, and they didn't go to see their mother ever again. And her husband, prior to the murders, he had been diagnosed with tuberculosis, so he had gone to live in another city where the air was better for him. The living conditions were better for him. So he was not with her at the time, but when he found out about it, he got even sicker. And well, I don't know of what, but he ended up dying soon after. So that's that. Did she end up outliving every one of her children? I don't know. We may never know. But she died in the asylum less than 3 years before her release of a cerebral apoplexy. So, yeah, that's that. I didn't talk about her experience in jail. Apparently, in jail, she was quite the storyteller. She was kind of a little celebrity there. She enjoyed retelling her story over and over. This is why people say she was unrepentant. She didn't really show remorse, and she baked a lot of cakes in jail. But it is said that most of the inmates didn't eat them because they were afraid. They were afraid there was witchcraft in the cakes. Anyways, that's the story of Leonarda Cianciulli. I should say the stories because there are many versions, and it is hard to figure out what is true, what is not. Some Italians that know the story very well, or so they say, and live near where she had done all of these things, seem to say that she was motivated by greed, and so she did it to steal their money and their jewelry and their clothes, maybe out of envy or jealousy, but certainly not to really save her son from death at war. They say that she was very cunning, very convincing, very manipulative, and that she was calculating, and she had really thought out those crimes, made very few mistakes. They believe that she said all of that to help with her image and to try to save herself. Who knows? And the book that she wrote, or maybe co-wrote with her lawyers, because it is a very lengthy, thick book, and she was almost illiterate because she had to quit school very early on. So yeah, they think that this book is mainly her trying to, portray herself in the best light that she can. So who knows? Let me know in the comments below what you think. And I hope you liked the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you wish to, and I will see you in the next episode.